Lawyers, what happened during your case that made international news? I took on what seemed like a straightforward real estate dispute. A woman named Rita walked into my office wanting to sue her landlord for refusing to return her security deposit. Basic stuff. I'd handled hundreds of cases like this, but something felt off from the start. Rita was nervous, constantly checking her phone, and kept asking if our conversation was confidential. I assured her everything was protected by attorney-client privilege. She handed me a folder with her lease agreement and rental receipts. The lease looked normal at first, but I noticed the address was for a property in a neighborhood I knew well, except I was pretty sure that address didn't exist. I pulled up a map on my computer and confirmed my suspicion. The street number she'd listed would place the building in the middle of a parking lot. When I pointed this out, Rita got flustered and said she must have written it down wrong. She gave me a different address, but her hands were shaking. Over the next week, Rita called my office 17 times. Not about the case, but asking strange questions. Did I know anyone at the FBI? Had anyone contacted me about her? Was I aware of any surveillance in the area? Each time I asked what was going on, she'd change the subject or hang up abruptly. Then she sent me documents to review. Security deposit receipts, move-in inspection forms, rent payment records. Everything looked legitimate except for one weird detail. Every single document was dated for the same day. The lease signing, the move-in inspection, 6 months of rent receipts, all had the exact same date stamp. I called Rita to ask about this and she insisted the landlord must have backdated everything, but that didn't make sense. Why would a landlord backdate documents that worked against their own interests? I started Googling the landlord's name she'd given me. Marcus Holloway. Nothing came up. No business licenses, no property records, no social media. For someone supposedly renting out properties, he had zero online presence. That's when Rita showed up at my office without an appointment. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. She said she needed to add something to the case and pulled out a stack of photographs. They showed the interior of an apartment, but something was wrong with the images. The furniture looked staged, like a showroom. There were no personal items anywhere. No dishes in the kitchen, no toiletries in the bathroom, nothing that indicated someone actually lived there. I asked Rita point blank if she'd ever actually lived at this property. She stared at me for a long moment, then started crying. She said she needed my help with something else, something bigger than a security deposit. Before she could explain, her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and her face went completely white. She grabbed her bag and ran out of my office. I tried to follow her, but she was already in the elevator. I went back to my desk and found she'd left the folder of photographs. I started going through them more carefully and noticed something in the background of one photo. A newspaper on the table, and I could just make out the date on the masthead. It was from 3 years ago. 2 days later, I got a call from the FBI. They wanted to meet with me about Rita. Turned out that wasn't even her real name. When I arrived at the federal building, there were 6 agents waiting. They showed me photos of Rita at various locations around the country, using different names, creating fake legal disputes with non-existent landlords. But that wasn't the shocking part. They told me Rita was a key witness in an international trafficking case, and she'd been in witness protection. Someone had found her. The fake legal dispute was her way of trying to communicate with law enforcement without being obvious. The agents explained that every detail she'd given me, the made-up addresses, the impossible dates, the photos, all contained coded information about her location and who was after her. Then they showed me security footage from my office building. The same day Rita ran out, 3 men entered the building right after her. They went to my floor, but I'd already left. That's when the lead agent told me what was really in those photographs and why this case was about to make international headlines. The rest of the story is on my channel or linked below.